We're going to spend some time talking about hot work safety. Uh, at the outset, we're just going to take a quick overview. Hot work programs are written procedures that are intended to prevent the outbreak of fires, fire alarm activations, and smoke or odor migration involving open flames caused by work producing heat or sparks. Now, this includes, but isn't limited to, brazing, cutting, grinding, torch soldering, thawing pipes, and torches applied to roofing, welding, and that sort of thing. So the prevention and protection against fires and other hazards associated with hot work can be addressed by the general requirements that OSHA specifies in 29 CFR 1910 and then also NFPA 51B. So let's talk about fire prevention and protection for welding and cutting. Flames and sparks are the main causes of fire explosions during welding and cutting. Sparks can travel up to 35 feet in a work area. Sparks can also pass through walls, ceiling, floor openings, or be lodged within cracks during welding and cutting processes. Combustibles such as wood, paper, rags, dust, and flammable liquids can also increase the risk of fire and explosion. So how are we going to mitigate the hot work risk? The best way to mitigate the risk of hot work is to move the task to a designated welding maintenance shop area that's made safe for hot work. That's an ideal circumstance. Welding and cutting operations shall ideally be conducted in a separate, well-ventilated room with fire retardant work surfaces and floor. Now, when work cannot be moved, and because we do so much field work, it very often cannot be moved any place else other than where it is already set up. Welding on construction sites, on different floors and all that sort of thing. A hot work permit is going to be required before the welding task is performed. So let's talk about that, and let's talk about hot work roles and training. So even before the permitting process begins, roles and responsibilities must be defined by the written hot work program, and each employee trained in the roles as described in NFPA 51B. Now, typical roles include the hot work operator. Now, that's a qualified person authorized by management to perform hot work such as welding, brazing, soldering, and other associated work tasks. There's also the permit authorizing individual. Now, that's an employee who's trained and authorized to issue a hot work permit by management. And then there also is the fire watch. That's an employee who's trained in hot work safety and who monitors the hot work area for changing conditions, detects fires, and extinguishes if possible. So when we talk about a hot work permit, if welding, cutting, or brazing operations can't be conducted in a designated area or a shop designed to facilitate safe hot work operations, then these activities require a hot work permit, as is defined by our hot work program. Now, these precautions help mitigate the risk of fire or explosion. Minimum precautions include that we need to ensure that the building fire sprinkler system is operational at the hot work location. Now, that's if it's applicable. If the sprinkler system, fire detection system has to be disabled, then we need to inform the fire department and the property insurance company. That's something that the GC would do, and define alternate precautions that need to be taken during the outage and then for the duration of the outage. Now, all combustible materials within 35 feet of the hot work need to be moved to a safe location. If they can't be moved, then they need to be protected by fire retardant covers or shielding, what we call fire blankets. Appropriate PPE is provided to employees performing hot work based on hazard assessment, and then a fire watch is initiated during and for 30 minutes after, in some cases it's an hour, all hot work is stopped, and the hot work approver has inspected the hot work area before resuming normal operations. So with regard to health protection, ventilation, and PPE, let's talk about that. Under the OSHA welding and cutting standards, OSHA requires 3 factors to be considered as far as ventilation requirements go. The dimensions of the space in which the welding is to be done, the number of welders, and the possible evolution of hazardous fumes, gases, or dust according to the metals involved. OSHA also requires, under the same standard, proper PPE selection such as welding helmets, welding goggles, face shields, proper shade number for the lenses, which you can find in the table in the standard. And then there are some specialized precautions. In some cases, additional safety precautions are necessary. Areas to consider to include are included but not limited to piping prior to cutting or welding on pipes. The operator must ensure that the pipe is purged and empty. Proper ventilation is required in order to prevent inhalation of fumes such as hexavalent chrome. Then containers, they must be cleaned to ensure no flammable materials or vapors are present. Confined space is a whole different thing and much in addition to what we're talking about here. If we're talking about confined spaces, then atmospheric testing needs to be performed as well as other precautions outlined in our confined space program. And then atmospheric changes, oxygen levels could be higher than normal and in certain operations. For example, if a leak occurs when oxygen is used for aeration, higher levels of oxygen can lead to an explosion. So atmospheric testing may need to be conducted to ensure oxygen levels are not above 20.8. These are the things I want you to bear in mind as we consider hot work. We're doing hot work consistently, and we need to understand the importance of making sure we don't start fires, have explosions, and so that's the reason why we're taking this time to discuss hot work and hot work permits.